we're talking about adding integers. If the signs are going to be the same, that means they're either both going to be positive or both going to be negative. If the signs are different, that's like having one positive number and one negative number. Okay? So first, let's do the same sign. When the signs are the same, you're going to add the numbers. And keep the sign. And what we mean by sign is whether it's positive or negative. Okay, so then we move to the examples. When we have the examples, okay, what is something that's in here that you don't normally see in an addition problem? Yes, sir. The parentheses. Okay, so let's talk about parentheses in math. I already kind of told you guys that if you see something touching the outside of parentheses, it means what? Multiply. So, for example, if we see 4 parentheses 2. Because there's nothing between this 4 and the parentheses, it would mean multiply, right? Because there's nothing there to say, hey, you're going to add, or hey, you're going to subtract, okay? So if it's touching the outside of the parentheses, it does mean multiply. However, parentheses are also used to separate signs. So you will never hardly see 2 subtraction signs that are right beside each other. You won't see this. Because if it's not typed correctly, it might look like one big subtraction sign, right? You would see this. So in a case like this, they would use parentheses to separate the subtraction sign from the negative sign. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? So down here, where you see the parentheses is where they're separating a negative from a plus sign. So for example, on the first one, we have negative 12 plus negative 23. Well, the only reason they put parentheses here is to keep it from running into that plus sign. Does that make sense? Okay. So when the signs are the same, that means they're either both positive or they're both negative.
They're both negative, so it'd be negative 35.
Right. So we're going to look and say, okay, both of these numbers are negative, so I can just add them up. I'm just taking negatives and I'm putting more negatives with it, right? So add those numbers on your paper, 23 and 12. You should get 35, yes? Yeah. And is it going to be positive or negative? Negative 35. It's like you owe money and then you owe some more money. 100 plus 57. You've always known how to do that. What's the answer to that one?
157.
157. The next one. The signs are different. I'm sorry. The signs are negative, not different. So we're going to add them up and we're going to keep it as negatives. Yes? So add them on your paper, keep them negative. Did you get negative 427?
Yes.
Very good. 2003 plus 49.
That's 2052.
Very good. 2052. $32 years from now. 10, 6, and 3. What's the answer there?
19.
19. Okay, so when we're adding more than one negatives, we're still just going to add them all up and they're going to stay negative. What's 8 plus 6 give us?
14.
So that would be negative 14 plus 5, or plus negative 5.
19.
Negative 19. When the signs are the same, it's pretty simple. When the signs are the same, it's pretty straightforward. You add them up, and then it stays like it started, either positive or negative, okay? When the signs are different, this is when we're adding some positives and some negatives together. When the signs are different, sorry guys, my allergies are bothering me. You're gonna subtract the numbers. And keep the sign of the stronger number.
What does it mean by stronger?
I'm so glad you asked. So the stronger number, okay? It's the number that appears bigger. But we can't call it the bigger number because we know positives are always bigger than negatives. So positive 1 is bigger than negative 1,000, right?
Yeah.
But negative 1,000, the number appears to be bigger, yes? Because numerically, that number is bigger without the sign. So I call it the stronger number because I can't just say that it's the bigger number because that's not true. Sit up. So we call it the stronger number. It's the number that looks like it has the bigger numeric value if the signs weren't on there.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I said stronger and why I put the little muscles.
Maybe first.
And I'm coloring mine pink.
No.
And I know there's a plus sign, okay? But now that you're in junior high, just because there's an addition sign doesn't mean that you add to solve it. It means we're taking some positives and we're taking some negatives and we're putting them together. And you're not going to write this part down. You're just going to watch.
Oh, yay.
You're just going to watch. We're going to talk about zero pairs for just a minute. We're going to say that a red dot is -1 and a green dot is +1. Okay, so if I have two red dots, what do I have?
Negative.
-2. What if I add 3 more negatives?
-5. Should it be -5?
Right, this would be like -2 plus -3, and everybody would say, oh, this equals -5.
5. Is it wrong?
Because the signs are the same, so we could just add them up. Now, when the signs are different, we end up with what's called a zero pair. A zero pair is when I have this. When I have one negative and one positive, what is the value of that?
0.
It's 0. Okay, you can think about it like you think of money. If I give you $1, but you owe me $1,
Then you have 0.
what are you left with?
Nothing.
Nothing, right? If you make $10, but you then spend $10, you have nothing left. So one positive and one negative, they kind of cancel each other out. So anytime you see a green dot and a red dot together, that equals what? 0. That's called a zero pair. Because it's a pair that equals 0. Are you mind blown?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at one of these problems. Let's look at, we'll say, -4 plus 2. Because are the signs the same here or are they different?
Different.
They're different. So let's start with 4 negatives. And we're going to add, which means we're going to actually also put these up here, 2 positives. So now we have to figure out what the value of this is.
-2.
Right, I'm hearing -2. Because one red dot and one green dot together makes what? That makes 0. This makes 0. So what's left over? -2. Okay, so even though it is an addition problem, because we did add the other dots up here, to solve it, you have to get your brain to think to subtract. Because you have some positives and some negatives, now we have to take away everything that means 0 and figure out what's going to be left over. That's why I'm saying look for that stronger number. Because if the biggest looking number is negative, when we take all the 0 stuff away, we're going to have negatives left over. If the bigger looking number is positive, for example, we could do 6 plus -4. We could do +6. Then when we take all the 0 stuff away, we're going to have positives left over. So what you have left over depends on what that what that stronger, bigger looking number is, right? So we're going to subtract even though there's a plus sign there when the signs are different, okay? Because we have to cancel some stuff out. So let's go back and look at the examples. 46 plus -10. When we have 46 positives and we add 10 negatives to there, what's going to be left over? Positives or negatives? Positives.
It would be 36 of them.
Positives. So I'm going to just underline the number that's stronger. That way we know in the end our answer has to still be positive. And then we can just subtract because we have one positive and one negative. So we're going to subtract 46 minus 10 is what? 36. And we're leaving it positive because that stronger number was positive. Next, we have -19 plus 8. So what's the stronger number? -19. So is our answer going to be positive or negative? Negative.
When you get a chance, look over this and see which ones you want to know.
When we subtract 19 minus 8, what do we get? 11. So our answer is going to be -11. Because that means we'll have 8 positives and negatives that overlap. Okay? 8 0 pairs. If we did the dots on this one. Positive 801 plus negative 253. So is our answer going to be positive or negative? Positive. And then we can subtract. And the stronger number does not always come first. It just so happens that it did in these 3 problems. And I got positive 548. Is that what you got?
Yeah.
Try the next one. Try the next 2. Try these 2 completely by yourself. And then check your answers with mine. And then I'll do the last one with you. Did you get negative 43 for the first one?
Yes.
Very good. What about negative 11 for the second one? Awesome. Okay, for the last one, everybody look up here. When you have more than two numbers, okay, if the signs are different on some of them, so we've got a positive, a negative, and a positive, but we're supposed to add them all up. The first thing I want you to do is take everything that's alike and put it together. That means if there's more than one positive, add those up. If there's more than one negative, add those up. Then you can subtract. So is there more than one positive here? What, 8 and 5? So what is 8 plus 5? 13. So I'm going to change this 8 and 5 to 13. So is there more than one negative there? No. So now I just have 13 plus negative 6. If I had, let's say I had another negative, then I would combine all the negatives and then we would subtract them. Okay? So we combined all our positives. So now we've got 13 plus negative 6. So now we can subtract. 13 minus 6 is going to be what?
Subtract.
Right, because the signs are different, so we have to subtract. 7. And is it going to be positive or negative? Positive, because the stronger number was positive. So when you have more than two numbers, take everything that's positive, put that together first, then put everything together that's negative, and then subtract. Kind of getting the hang of this? Okay, put that up.